I'm in the reloading room and I just finished cleaning my rifle. I just cleaned it from a prior match that I shot not too long ago. But before I put my rifle up, what I wanted to do was make a video about what is happening or what happens to a piece of brass after it's been fired, and then if it is left in the chamber and fired again, or dry fired, if the rifle is dry fired with the same piece of brass in the chamber. I used to do this for practice, dry fire practice, so I could get the most out of my range trips. I would shoot a live round, and then right after that, I would leave that round in the chamber, thinking that it was adding life to my firing pin. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, because the firing pin then is hitting the primer again. But at any rate, I would do that probably 5 or 6 times, sometimes with my eyes closed and eyes open and all of that, just to get a little bit more practice behind the trigger. It was helpful to me. I don't do it so much anymore because of what happens to the brass. I will just eject the brass and then dry fire a few times without the brass in it. However, in the past, when I did this, I was noticing that I would get inconsistent shoulder bumps, and I didn't know where it was coming from. So I would get my brass and I would measure it, and then I would measure 3 or 4 pieces, and all of them would be about the same, and then I would set everything up on my dies to bump the shoulder back about 1/1000th or 1.5 to 2/1000. That worked pretty good, except for I would get these pieces of brass that would have excessive shoulder bump, and I never knew where it came from. I thought it was in my die. I wasn't leaving or I wasn't putting the press down long enough to get dwell time, or I wasn't camming over enough or camming over too much, all kind of things. But what happened was the firing pin itself, when I was dry firing that brass, would actually bump the shoulder. And that's what I'm making this video to demonstrate how that happened. So here is an RCBS, I think this is called as a precision mic. And this is how I measure the base to shoulder datum. Here is the datum in the top piece of this tool. All it is just there's a little gauge here, and then this line here is the reference line that I use to show, or that is used to show, just like on a micrometer. This will show the this is the reference line for the index here. Notice that the bottom also it's cut out on the bottom for the primer, so you can do this without removing the primer. In this case, I need to do it without removing the primer because I need to dry fire this case again. But it doesn't matter because that primer, even if it was sticking proud, it would not change the measurement here. So let me just spin this shut, and I'm getting about a little bit more, maybe 1/2,000, close to 1/1000 of plus 1/1000 on this gauge. So that is the reference. It doesn't really mean anything whether or not it's 1/1000 above SAMI or not. I don't really know, but let me snap it shut, and that's what I'm getting, about 1/2,000. So I think that's coming out on the camera okay. All right, so let me take it out of the gauge. And then what I'm going to do is put it back in the rifle and fire it. This is what I would do at the range to practice: once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, let's say. The more I fire it, the more it'll bump. It seems to stop at some point, but all right, let me get this brass out. Then what I'm going to do is go right back into the gauge, so now it's considerably bumped that shoulder. That firing pin spring, so it was right, let's just say it was right around 1/2 or right around 0. That's 5,000, 6, 7. Now it's closing at minus 7,000. Maybe even a little bit more. So it's bumping that shoulder at least 7, looks like 7.5, so plus the half it's about 8 thousandths after 5 dry firing. So that firing pin, let me get that closer to the, I guess it's reading there. So that 0.45 would be -5, 1, 2, so just call it 2. Let's say it's bumping about 7 thousandths more. The firing pin alone has bumped that shoulder back on this brass about 7 thousandths. So this piece of brass was just fired, and it was, now I do want to, this is a Lapua brass, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but this has been fired about 15 times. It's on its 15th firing, and it is, I've annealed it. I anneal my brass every time I fire it. So I just wanted to demonstrate what happens that your firing pin, if you get inconsistent. Now, if I were to put this into a die and all of my other brass, I bump 2 thousandths, this would look like it's been bumped 7 thousandths instead of 2, so I'd have that 5 thousandths discrepancy, and before I wasn't able to figure out where that came from. But I noticed it was happening on 7 or 8 pieces of my brass. I thought maybe my die or something, or the camo or whatever, but it turns out that was the issue. So that's all I wanted to do in this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.